What's up, guys, and welcome back to Absolutely Marvel and DC. Today, we're talking about the beautiful love story that was The Last of Us, Episode 3. I'm Hassan. That's Benny. Let's get into it.
No, if you're gonna do the opening, do the ad spot.
No, you're the one. You're the one who's like, I have gamer subs. It's a.
I have nothing on today.
You have nothing on.
I had to go to a doctor, and actually, you know what? Check out our sponsor, Into the AM. Use the code Absolutely at checkout and get yourself a discount on the code. These shirts are great. I love them. They're super soft. I'm literally wearing one as the undershirt right now. I had to go to the doctor today, though, so no gaming related stuff because I have like plain stuff to wear to boring places.
So go check out Into the AM. Use code comics at checkout. Right? Is that the right code?
No, it's absolutely.
Use code absolutely at checkout and check out our other sponsor, Gamer Subs. Less chalky than its competitor. Energy drink, I think. I don't know. Benny
That one's comics.
That's code comics at checkout. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the topic.
All right, so Last of Us 3. I'm going to give us a quick setup here because at this point it's already overall, we both enjoyed it. Thought it was a great and beautiful love story. It was a longer than normal episode. The episode in general tells a past story about Bill meeting Frank and the two of their love story and how they survived the apocalypse up to the finale of the episode. Joel and Ellie are basically not involved in the episode. We get to see a little bit of Tess, even though she was killed off in episode 2. And that's kind of the whole episode is just Bill and Frank, which is my actual only complaint.
Yeah.
So
I have no complaints.
Well, I want to go over the Twitter, and we're not going to talk about the ones that are like, "Oh my God, no more gay stuff in our show." No, because that means you didn't play the game properly. But my only complaint is that this is such a separate episode. It's a filler episode. You could skip this episode, and you'll miss nothing in terms of the Last of Us story.
Right.
And that's my problem with it, because they could have integrated Ellie and Joel more. We could have gotten a lot more history of Tess and Joel, the core characters that are going to carry on. In the game, Bill is just a slice of the game. Bill doesn't carry on. So that role is fine, but they didn't integrate Bill and Frank into the overall story, which is my only complaint.
I'd argue, like, I see what you're saying, like narrative serialized storytelling, especially when we live in like an anime world where half the shit is filler and it's completely ancillary and unnecessary to the plot and you could totally skip it. I think that this show just feels like I'm watching a universe unfold in front of me. I'm learning about the history of this world. I think that there's so much insight to this Bill and Frank episode because you ask yourself, how did people survive the zombie apocalypse? What were the things? And rather than having those giant group flashbacks, we were given this intimate romance that is in itself.
And the acting was incredible for that. They did such a good job.
Oh my God. And I want to talk about that later because I want to go in on those performances, but I think it is important to the overall story, and it wasn't filler only because of how much world building and texture is given from their romance. There's so much nuance to that like helps you understand the world better. Also,
the problem with that, though, just to go with that real quick about the world building and nuance, we only saw one clicker and we only saw one raid. So I don't know how much world building it truly did because of because it was so light and so minorly peppered in. I'd say the biggest world building was the fact that they used the radio to contact Tess and Joel.
Well, I think it's about the atmosphere of the world. It's not necessarily like every raid or whatever. I didn't even consider that there were humans raiding stuff and killing people and like stealing. That should have been like an immediate thought, but it wasn't until I saw this episode where I think had they done it early in the episode, I wouldn't have even cared that much. But they waited until we had this incredibly deep, intimate investment in that relationship and in that dynamic, not wanting it to end, wanting to preserve it. Then you have raiders come. Then you have people that are there with no care for the lives these people or the lives they've led or the love they've had that are there just to take. I think that was great. Also, like, it's not a long scene, but Tess and Joel have been together for 13 years.
Yeah.
We know that because of that scene. That's huge because at the end of the episode where Joel like reads the letter and then Ellie tries to bring up Tess and he walks outside, there's so much more weight. And I know that it wasn't about them. Like, hey, maybe it would have been better to just get a flashback episode about Joel and Ellie or Joel and Tess together, see their romance. I think this was a much better way to do it because it's such a different storytelling approach. Show their intimacy through the characters that are around rather than through them, and they'll probably pepper in a lot more flashbacks. Like Joel really hasn't fully accepted that Tess is gone yet. He hasn't had like a breakout crying moment or anything like that. And I don't know the story. Maybe he's too stoic to ever do that. But I really think
right. I'm trying not to spoil what happens in the game, although this thing is telling us a little bit differently. So in the game, just to go over real quick, I do like what they decided to do with the Bill and Frank moment.
Yeah.
Because in the game, Bill is there to show you what Joel could become.
Yep.
In the game, Bill is very reserved. Bill is very much like, screw everyone. Don't come over here. I'm only friends with you because we have a favor and we have a past relationship. And I'll go deeper into how Frank's role and everything plays in when we start to talk about that difference. Yep. But in the game, it's played to be off as Bill is where Joel could end up if he doesn't finally accept the loss of his daughter. But in the game, this is also like maybe 4 to 6 hours in. Like you're getting a lot more time with the character. So I feel like the show is using this as a way to jump us to Joel having to accept Ellie, that Ellie is going to be there. Because the big turning point that Joel accepts Ellie isn't until like 7 or 8 hours in the game. There's a pivotal moment that I won't spoil that comes down to them finally having it out and him basically saying like, go away. And that's what he accepts. She's kind of become his surrogate daughter.
Yeah, and I think the Bill and Frank relationship helps you see the passage of time better, and I'll say that's another way that it maybe connects you better to Joel and Tess's relationship, because you wonder, is this a real relationship or is this like a zombie apocalypse? We sleep together and we live together because it's convenient to our survival, or is this a real romance and a really can you have deep love? New love, something brand new than from your past life in the middle of a zombie apocalypse? That's an important question, because I bet 90% of what you do now is survival. 99% of what you do is survival. You're not learning, you're not living, you're not laughing. Maybe you're loving. Like that answered that question. That I think I'm not a big zombie apocalypse story reader. I think the Walking Dead was entertaining for a season and then it was trash, and that's me. And that's not a grandiose statement about the acting or anything like that. Just like I don't like stories like this. I don't like stories where it's a perpetual slogfest of no happiness. This story showed me that in this world where the world is gone, there's so much happiness left to have here. There's so much love left to have. I mean, those two people spent a beautiful 16, 17 years together and had a wonderful romance where they took care of each other and they taught each other and they rebuilt their town and all of this stuff in a world where, had the zombie apocalypse not happened, there would be no Bill and Frank. Yeah. There would be no small town. They'd be closeted and uncomfortable, but they were able to live out and free and love each other, and it was beautiful.
I mean, I loved like the simple moments, like even the strawberries. Like just them giggling over the strawberries.
God, that's so beautiful. That's such a beautiful scene.
And it's so I want to go obviously because this is what we do here. I've played the games all the way through, and I did it recently so I could freshly remember things. So the big difference is this. So what did I tell you last week? What do you think has been spoiled about what you think the game's portrayal is to this?
I saw the scene. So I saw that Frank killed himself and was bitten in the game.
Right.
So he bit. So he. I saw this after I watched the episode on TikTok. Just a clip of. Bill says multiple times that Frank was my partner, and that's he just keeps saying the word partner, and obviously it's relationship partner, but they don't. It's not. It's intentionally ambiguous in the game because they want you to think. And apparently Frank got bit, and before he could turn into a zombie, he killed himself, and it's not held for anywhere near as much weight as it is in the show. That's for sure. I think this is the right approach to diverge.
That is what they did with that. So in the games, Bill and Frank don't exist. It's just Bill. And he references him as his partner. If you go in, when you're going into his armory, which does exist, it's at the bottom of a church, you can see like gay porno mags everywhere. That's one of the signs. And when you go upstairs, you find Bill's room where he obviously had somebody else there. So they imply that Frank was his partner and not like his partner, not his partner. Like, they kind of imply that the whole way through. What you discover as you're going through it, so this is then taken to give us, and this is what a lot of the backlash online is, because these scenes are missing. Like, if you ignore the ones that are like, oh my God, it went woke, all those stupid things, you just go with the ones that actually are missing the scenes in the game. You get to see things like Joel interacting with Bill, and Bill being brash and just go away, and I don't want to trust anyone. He doesn't even want to help them in the beginning because he's just so done with working with people. Like, he doesn't want to work with anyone because of what happened with him and Frank. And that's one of the things that's missing, and that's why the point of it in the game is to show you what Joel could have become if he didn't learn to trust Tess, and through that, Ellie. As you go deeper into it, Ellie is got a weird relationship with Bill as well, where they're constantly arguing, which is another thing people are like, oh, we're missing that scene. They then go look for a car battery. That's like the whole sequence going on there, which is conveniently located in the school on the other side of the town that Bill hasn't touched. Because what happened is him and Frank had a falling out, and they divided the town. So Frank, as far as Bill hasn't seen Frank in years. So what ends up happening is you end up going over there, you get the battery, discover the battery's already been taken, and you get a tense scene where Ellie and Bill are trying to save Joel, and he's stuck in one of Frank's traps. And like the zombies are all coming at him, the clickers and all that stuff are coming at him. That then leads to them ending up at a house where they discover that Frank hung himself because he had gotten bitten and he didn't want to live with it anymore. But the more moving thing, not moving, the thing that really divides. So in the show, we get a very moving, a very loving story about these two guys living in this town, right?
Yeah.
You discover then that Frank hated Bill. He very specifically states, I hated you. I hated every moment with you. Like they weren't a loving couple.
Yeah.
And that just adds to the whole, this is what Joel could become. Because the whole point is that Bill refused. So in the show, Bill kind of adapted to Frank. And that's how they became a couple. But in the game, Bill just stayed Bill, which was supposed to lay in, that's what Joel could become. Frank didn't want to be with Bill anymore because he just hated him so much by the end of that thing. Yeah. And then we have the scene where Bill's invited to go with them, and he says, no, I'm staying here. And then Joel and Ellie leave, and she's got the porno mag, which kind of like hammers home. They were partners, not partners, like.
Yeah. No, and I'm so glad I didn't play this game and that this is my first version of this story because I think this is better. And I know what you're saying.
Natalie said the same thing. We're watching it. She goes, why wasn't this version in the game?
Yeah.
And I like that. I just wish they had interacted with them more. But
yeah. And it's definitely sad because it's like you're trying to figure out how, because I think, I don't know why, even in my gut, I was like, we're going to lose Frank and Bill's still going to be around by the end. I was shocked when it was the double suicide. Or I was up until that scene began, and then I felt like that's what was coming on. But I was really, really hoping that we'd get to see some like Bill post Frank interacting with Ellie and Joel. So I was a little bit sad not to get that. But then like how it ended for him, how that story ended was perfect. I mean, that is the perfect way. He lived a beautiful, beautiful, happy life. And I see a lot of people saying that on Twitter that it feels like it's not. Why is this here? Why is this relevant? All this stuff. It's not about getting to the finish line of the story. You have 10 episodes to get there. And yeah, your favorite moment from the game might be cut, but this isn't that story. This is a different story. This is the story told by these writers and these directors. And I think literally as a non-game player, I have not enjoyed something this much in God knows how long. I have not been disinvested in storytelling or
I look
acting
forward to it
or
every
world
week.
building.
Like Sunday,
yeah. Oh my God, I do. And I haven't had that since like I cannot think like maybe House of the Dragon, but even that was more for fun to watch. It wasn't that good. This is the most recent, incredibly entertaining, nuanced, well thought out. Also, like this is a cultural piece of media which I love. When this episode aired, I was a day late to the punch on this one because I was out of town. Twitter blew up. Twitter was obsessively saying like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Everybody was like, this is the greatest love story I've ever seen. People were going on and on and on. But people from different walks of life, a bunch of gaming streamers that I follow were saying it, a bunch of movie reviewers I was following saying it, a bunch of people who literally just do art that are irrelevant to any kind of entertainment in that sense. Everyone was talking about it.
Oh, yeah. The episode's got the lowest Metacritic score, but it increased viewership over the previous two episodes.
Yeah.
And it tells an amazing love story. I'm not denying that. And so if you watch till afterward, they also had a discussion where why did they change the Bill and Frank story? And one of the best things is because this is a different medium. And I kind of agree with that. Because in the game, we have to see everything through Joel's eyes. Like the whole game is done through Joel's eyes, other than the DLC, which is behind Ellie's eyes. So if they were to in the game duck away to Bill and Frank, it wouldn't make any sense. It would be jarring. It wouldn't fit. But in the show, they're like, but we have a chance now in the show to tell this story because we're not trying to make this about Joel. Also, I think that this actually hurts them to an extent. I do. Because they were stating that they've only gotten a story to season 1 and season 2, which would be Last of Us Part 1 and Last of Us Part 2. This episode proves you can stretch this out and we're fine. Like, you don't need to just do the 2 seasons and call it a day.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to do some anthology stuff, but also I have never-ending respect for writers and directors when they're in charge of something that is profitable, of writing it, knowing when it ends and sticking to it. because those will 9 out of 10 times be the best stories. I think This Is Us is a really good example of that. It's a show that the NBC begged for more seasons, but when they set out to do the show, they said, we will do 6 seasons. This is the story we have mapped out to tell. They did pivots. They changed a lot of stuff and a lot of nuances to go along with what's happening in the real world and COVID and all that. They changed stuff as they went on, as actors developed, but they had a story to tell, start to finish, and it was so much better for it versus a show like How I Met Your Mother. I know we're talking like a different genre of medium, but How I Met Your Mother is supposed to end at, I think, season 5 or 6.
Where they met the mother like 8 times?
Well, yeah. It went on to 9 seasons, and the whole last season is over the course of 2 days versus every other season, which is over the course of a year. Yeah. The story sucks. It was terrible. And so as much as I'd like, now after seeing Bill and Frank, it's like, oh my God, I want more of this. I want more anthology. If they set out to do 2 years of movies or two seasons, I'll take it. I'll take that. I feel like you could cut the Joel and Ellie sequences out and show the story to a lot of people just to get them, just to like let them have this episode. Because this episode is a movie. It's a self-contained love story. And I think it's beautiful that way. Yeah, there's definitely more texture to be had if you know who Joel and Ellie are, if you watch the 2 episodes prior. But I like it. I don't hate that. I actually really appreciate that it's that way. Because I was thinking about it because my girlfriend hasn't seen it yet. But I know specifically this part of the story she will love. She'll love. So I was like, hey, I'm going to come over and we're going to skip the first 10 minutes. We're going to watch the whole episode. And then I'll give you context before the end. And we'll watch it that way. Because I don't think she wants to watch the whole show, but it's just
if they go with what you're saying and they stick to their guns, they just do season 1 and 2. There are some corrections in Last of Us 2 that I think they can make. Character you've probably heard going around the circuit is Abby. Abby shows up. In the
have not heard
season.
Anything about it.
Well, I'm not going to spoil what she is or what her role, but the problem is a lot of people had a problem with her in the second game because they didn't spend a lot of time really developing her properly.
Yeah,
and so I feel like what they've just done with Bill, where we didn't get a lot of background on Bill. You could do that to fix some of the glaring story problems with Last of Us 2 by having it be just focused on that season.
Yeah.
Because like that, we got more Bill. Like this is more Bill than we've ever had. And when Natalie was watching it, she's like, why didn't they do this story in the game? I'm like, well, technically, other than the dual suicide, you could say that this is kind of how Bill and Frank went. You know what I mean? Like it could go this route. This could fit into the game to an extent. And just instead of them having that romantic finale, they fought, Frank left. That would be the difference. You know, like.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, I mean, I'm going to think about that scene till I'm fucking 1,000 years old and I'm dead in the ground. That is that.
Did you notice the callback to episode 1?
Well, when was it?
Okay, so in episode 1, he's sleeping on the couch, which is in the game, and then she's playing at the radio. That's not in the game.
Yeah, the 80s thing.
Right. Well, the 80s music started playing at the end of this episode because it was on loop. That's why it was playing in the first episode.
Yep. And that means trouble, and and Tess and Frank came up with that code.
But that also comes up and says that they died like within a week of Joel and Ellie getting there.
Yeah,
so
definitely, or was it? I don't think it was within a week. Was it within a week?
It has, because the 80s music started playing when Joel and Ellie left the QZ.
Was it not already playing? Like he just hadn't checked it?
She made the joke. She's like, oh, 80s is playing. And he's like, what?
Okay.
And she's like, that means trouble. I got it. And it wasn't playing. At the end of the episode when they're leaving, the radio kicks on and starts playing 80s music.
Gotcha. Okay, that's kind of confusing just because it seemed like the house had been sitting there for a little bit longer.
I thought
it was really
seemed
dusty.
like. But
maybe they were just old. I mean, that was towards the end of their lives, and they weren't upkeeping the same way they were before because they'd redone the boutique and multiple of the buildings, and everything looked kind of overgrown again. I really like that. It broke my heart the moment that he stood up and said, Bill, today is my last day.
Yeah.
And you're going to give me one more good day. And I was like, oh my God. Oh, that's crazy. That is an insane thing to say and a burden to put on somebody. But it's a fair request because you're living in a zombie apocalypse.
And Nick Offerman's acting for that whole thing was just incredible. It was so nuanced because he didn't have that many lines. It was just all of his facial emotions and the way he portrayed everything. It was so great.
Yeah, they played him well. I mean, I think it's like Bill is meant to be like autistically coded for sure. He's not the best communicator, and he's like a quiet, gruff, really intelligent guy and stuff too. And it just like, God, that whole sequence. And at the end, I don't know, you felt like something was coming when he revealed that he'd also taken the pills and that they were just going to go lay in bed together and pass on. And That's stunning. I was terrified of Joel walking in to see those corpses, so that was another beautiful way to do it. Of like, hey, we opened up all the windows, so the smell's not going to be sitting there. Don't go in that room, please.
Yeah.
God,
yeah,
like it's stunning.
I do want to say though, at least Frank's lucky that I wasn't in the Bill role because it totally would have shot him at the beginning. That guy was so pushy. I would have been like, he's trying to take my shit.
Well, I love. It's so. That scene was so interesting to watch. Like they're meeting and stuff because Frank is so charismatic, but then Bill is like Frank is exteriorly what Bill is internally. Bill and Frank are the same. I mean, they're both into the same music. They have so many similar feelings, but Bill's a conspiracy nut and he's just some crazy guy a little bit on the outside, and Frank is this softer person that's going to bring out the best in him. I love when he's eating with Joel and he's just got the gun pointed at him on the table the whole time.
I like Joel's comment though, like blah 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 blah, and get that gun out of my face, and he's just like
Nick Offerman plays those characters so well where he's literally just like, he always has those faces like
He's always Benny, would you have done it if it's a hot chick? Yeah, I'm like, everyone's asking my political spectrum, and the whole thing is my political spectrum is leave me the hell alone. Dan can vouch. I want to buy a cabin and just retreat to the woods. I'm like borderline doomsday prepper. Like,
I don't want to.
If we get to if the world is overrun by zombies, do not come at me unless I know you. I will shoot all of you. If the world is overrun by zombies, I'm making that specification right there. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think the story like. I think that the nuance, like the fun of this story works better as two men or maybe even two women if we wanted to go that route because of what it means for as far as like the freedom of living their lives, right? Because if it's
I was gonna say that's the only thing I think the gay aspect takes to it. It's a strong aspect to have. It is.
Yeah, it's
but
huge.
I'm saying the same story could have been told with a man and a girl, a man and a woman.
Yeah, and I don't think it would hit as hard. I don't think it would be.
I don't think it would have hit as hard, and I agree because they are free to do whatever they want, and so the idea of persecution is just not even a part of the story.
Which is so much.
We just get to have a love story between them, which every other love story that I've ever seen that involves two men or two women, even if it's small or nuanced, there's always the persecution angle. There's always the angle of this group hates us. Going all the way back to the 90s with like Will and Grace as a sitcom, there was always that, oh, here's that episode about the guy that hates the gays. That always becomes a part of the talking point. And I think that's why this episode works so well, because it's just removed. We just get to see that they just have a normal relationship.
And that's only possible because it's a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Purely because that type of small town somewhere, I don't think for 1 second Bill and Frank will get to live in a big old beautiful house together and not get ridiculed and tarnished.
Probably
by the
not
people
small
in
town Midwest like that.
Nope, no way. But here they are in this world where they are free to be who they are. And I love when he asks, so who's the girl? And he goes, there is no girl. And he's like, I know. Because he just knew. He knew. Yeah. He felt it immediately. He could feel it in the actions and the subtle nuances. If you didn't know this was the story they were going to tell, I feel like you knew the second you watched them interact because the chemistry is there. Everything about that scene plays out so well. I'm honestly, that might be one of the best episodes of television I've ever consumed, period, across everything.
Alibaba brings up a really good point. If the apocalypse happened in 2003, gay marriage wouldn't have been legalized. So it would have been even worse for them at the time to have that freedom to live that 20 years.
Which makes their marriage at the end even more beautiful.
Yeah.
That was stunning. That was stunning, too, that, like, you're going to put on the clothes that I pick out for you. We're going to get married. You're going to cook me dinner.
Yeah.
And we're going to say goodbye. God. Oh, I'm going to think about that to the day I died. That's so... It shook me. I was like crying. I was literally crying watching this multiple times throughout the story because it was just so perfect.
Yeah.
That love feels so real. Like if you tell me Nick Offerman is married to the other actor, which I need to look up his name because God, he was good too, I would fully believe you because they have crazy chemistry. Crazy well done chemistry.
Let's like as we do with the rest of these, where do you think the show is going next?
Well, I watched the preview, and it looks chaotic. It looks to be going to shit. I don't know. I think I'm still in the same boat of like, we're getting a story. I think now I'm more certain than ever that Ellie is the cure. That 100% they'll be able to like make a cure from her blood or whatever it is. Just because I think that you'd be hard pressed to make a story like this without some semblance of a happy ending. And I know there's a Last of Us Part 2 that people have mixed feelings about. And so I don't know.
I hope that doesn't get spoiled for you, Last of Us Part 2, why there's mixed feelings on it. So.
I hope it doesn't either. I'm staying away from it. The only reason I saw the TikTok thing is because I was okay to see it. I usually swipe away pretty quickly, but I was like, I'll watch this just because we were supposed to do this episode on Tuesday, so I'd watched it on Monday night or whatever. Yeah. So I'd been sitting with it for a while. So I think we're probably going to lose Joel in the last episode. I don't know how or why, but I think that they're going to be able to get a cure. Fingers crossed they find Joel's brother. I don't have like a lot of predictions. I think that's just like my overarching predictions kind of it.
No, I know. I'm trying to see where you think it's all going. So, all right, cool. Like I said, I'm keeping my reactions quiet so that we can try to get your brand new reactions to everything is what I'm aiming for here.
Sweet.
And there is a correction someone said because I said Midwest. They said, no, it's Lincoln, Massachusetts. I'm just going to, okay. Yeah. My bad. Lincoln, Massachusetts.
That might be better.
Was a different time.
Like, I would say Lincoln, Massachusetts in 03 is probably going to be just as bad. Lincoln, Massachusetts in 2023.
I mean, I grew up in New England.
There. Yeah.
I grew up in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New England area in 03. And I mean, it wasn't as bad as it would be in like in the Midwest, but it wasn't like warm and welcoming arms.
Yeah. My roommate's mom left Alabama so she could go get married to her partner in Massachusetts. So, hey, at least that's a good sign that it was less homophobic than Alabama for them to go get married up there. Oh.
So.
Yeah,
but,
that's all.
That's the episode. Last of Us 3 reviewed by Hassan and me. Check out our sponsors, Into the AM. Use the code absolutely at checkout. I'm even wearing this as an undershirt right now. They're so soft. And go check out our other sponsor, Gamer Subs. Use the code comics at checkout. And if you want to find more Hassan Kader, go check them out at Bad Days. Why aren't we promoting them more?
I don't know. We should. Check me out at the Bad Days podcast. It's not a podcast anymore. It's a commentary YouTube channel. All right. Bye.